Hey, everybody. How are you? This is Bob Cargill from Bob Cargill's Marketing Show, and this is episode 152. Yes, episode 152. And I'm so looking forward to episode 152, and I hope you are too. We're in for a very special treat with a very special guest. I'll introduce him to you in just a minute. Richard Connor, you can see him there next to me. Richard, proper formal interviews coming soon, but you can say hello.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Bob.
It's so great to have you on the show, Richard. I'm just going to go through my little housekeeping first, if you will. I always like to say to my listeners, my viewers, any audience members out there, all of you audience members out there, I hope you're happy, healthy, safe, and sound. And this is being recorded on Zoom. And what I do is share it then on YouTube. I break it up into some short video clips. And of course, it is hosted on Podbean. That's my app that I use to host my podcast, but it's also available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. So like Spotify and Apple and Google and wherever, quite frankly, iHeart, you name it. And podcast, it's so, I started this podcast a few years ago, and it just kind of has a life of its own. And I encourage marketers, and I assume there are some marketers out there on the receiving end of these episodes that I share with you. And I encourage you, if you don't already have your own podcast, to start one, because it's a great way to meet your guests and get to know them really, really well. It's a great way to create content. And if you're in marketing, you know what I'm talking about. You want to put some content out there on the airwaves, if you will. And it's actually enjoyable. I mean, I just literally, before I hit record, told Rich, once this conversation gets going, it's easy peasy, if you will, because we're just two friends talking amongst each other. And we just happen to have an audience that we can't necessarily see and have no idea who you are and how many of you are out there. But I encourage you in marketing to start your own podcast. I started my own blog in 2004, like 18 years ago. I can't believe it. And that was one of the best decisions of my marketing life. And starting my podcast a few years ago was another one of my best decisions. I think it's important for anyone who takes marketing seriously, their own personal branding seriously, to have some signature content that they put out there regularly. And that's where I'm going with all of this: a podcast, a blog, social media, content creation. Get after it now. Yes. Hey, Richard, now I'm going to get after introducing you, and it's about time. That's what you're probably saying. That's what my audience is probably saying. But yes, we are here today with Richard Connor. Let me formally introduce him, and then he knows I've already clued him in. First question is going to be, hey, Richard, tell the audience more about yourself than what I said in my introduction. But here is my formal introduction of Richard Connor. He's a global-minded strategic marketing pro with over 15 years of experience in B2B marketing for organizations, both domestic and international markets. He's currently a senior program director at Medtronic, leading a team responsible for expansion of a surgical product portfolio. Prior to Medtronic, Richard worked in various marketing and product management roles at Honeywell, and he has experience across different industries. His expertise is in marketing and brand strategy, market research, customer segmentation, new product commercialization, portfolio management, and leading marketing teams. Richard is a Connecticut native and enjoys international travel and obstacle course racing. Wow, that last, obstacle course racing, you mean running, I think, right? Or
I do mean running. There's a lot more that goes to it, but running's a big part of it.
Yeah, I was thinking, is it driving a car or obstacle course racing? But as I asked you that question, I was assuming it was running. Both you and I are runners. Richard, we can talk more about that. I don't do the obstacle courses though. But hey, so happy to have you here today, Richard. So happy to have you, the star of episode 152. And that was just a formal introduction. I want you to give us the unexpurgated version, if you will. Anything else that you can tell us about yourself, your background, what you're doing currently, et cetera, what brought you to this point in time with me today.
All right. Well, thanks again, Bob, for having me on the show. It's super exciting to be here. And yeah, I'll share a little bit about myself. I'll start on the personal side. As I mentioned, I'm a Connecticut native, but my parents are from the Caribbean. My dad's from the Dominican Republic, and my mom's from Jamaica. So my brother and I are first generation Americans. And we live in Connecticut. I'm married with 3 kids. My wife, Cecilia, is from Peru, and my kids are Amara, Alejandra, and Andre. So I like to call them my 3 little angels. But, these last couple of years, throughout the pandemic and being stuck in the house, they're really kind of challenging that status. But yeah, that's just, a little bit about my personal life. And then as you said, I am big into running and more recently into obstacle course racing, which I'm sure we can get into, but it's for me, it's about balance. It's not only about my professional life and work. It's also about my family life as well as health and fitness. And I believe it's just as important as everything else anybody can do. Because if you don't get that right, it just makes everything else harder. So it's a big part of my life. So that's.
No, Richard, how you just introduced yourself says so much about you as an individual, as a human being, because you talked about family and you talked about staying healthy, and I admire and respect you for that in terms of making that a priority. I agree 110%. And already you made my point when I told my listeners, have a podcast, you learn all about your guests. I didn't know a little bit of what you just said about your family and background and your 3 little angels. I love that. But yeah, the pandemic has tested all of us at home and what we do for work, et cetera, et cetera. And running, we're going to get into that. I won't be able to avoid that topic. But Medtronic, I believe, is where you work now. Do you mind telling us a little bit about what you do in your current role there at Medtronic?
Yeah, sure. So, actually, before I get to Medtronic, just a little bit more about my career. So, you had mentioned I'd worked in marketing for over 15 years. And prior to that, my plan was to go into technical fields, actually go into engineering. And during my time working full time, as well as going to school part time, I had an opportunity to switch to business and start in marketing. And I've just had a tremendous career growing up in the marketing function and the marketing world over the last 15 plus years. So that's just been tremendous in various areas, in terms of new product development, in terms of marketing strategy, in terms of product commercialization. So all of that's been a lot of great fun over the years. And then more recently at Medtronic, I've been with Medtronic for about 6 years now. And for my first 5, I was in marketing positions. For the first year, more so around product development and business strategy, and then mostly on what we refer to as kind of the downstream side. So product launches, portfolio lifecycle management, that type of work. And that's led me to the position that I'm in today, which I've taken a step out of marketing, I would say, and I'm getting more exposure to other parts of the business, kind of leading more so on the operation side as well as the innovation side of our business. So this is a little bit more cross-functional experience that I'm getting in my current role.
And Richard, I call this a marketing show, but I think you listened before, and I also told you we don't have to stick to marketing. so yeah, I'm gonna probably steer it in that direction, but we're going to talk about running, and that's exactly why I wanted to ask exactly what you're doing right now. And as you said, you're getting a little away from marketing, but your background for the most part is marketing. And hey, how did we meet? I believe it was through the American Marketing Association. So I will have to ask you a little bit about that. It's been on my mind a lot lately because I'm going to in person the national conference in a few weeks, 3 weeks from this weekend, to Chicago. And I believe that's how we met, but not in person. Was it the virtual? Yeah. Tell us about your
That's right.
background in AMA, because we have that in common.
We do. And it's just been a wonderful experience again over the last couple of years. I started with AMA just right before the pandemic and kind of got a little taste of that in person. And then things quickly went virtual. But, just to share a little bit about, how I got into AMA, I'll just share first off, one of the descriptions of marketing that I love the most is the description is marketing is creating, communicating, and delivering value to consumers. And that's one of my favorite. I know there's a lot of definitions, but that's one of my favorites. And, throughout my career, I've been more focused on kind of that creation and delivering part, not as much on the communicating, which is probably what most people think about, right? When you're thinking about marketing, you're thinking about advertising, you're kind of thinking about that communication. So that's really kind of what brought me to AMA, is because I felt like throughout my career, there was something I felt like I was missing. A lot of my work had been on the B2B side, not as much experience on the B2C side, and really kind of around that communication. And I would say specifically around digital and other technologies. So that's what brought me to AMA initially. I started to attend events in our local chapter here in Connecticut. I'm part of the Southern Connecticut chapter, and it's been such meet the board and the opportunity to not only join the board, but lead the chapter as president this board year, which I have a few months to go in this current position, but it's been an honor and a privilege and a learning experience, quite honestly, over the last couple of years.
I forgot that you are president of the chapter right now, the Southern Connecticut chapter.
Southern Connecticut chapter, yeah.
That is phenomenal. I'm both the past president and a future president of my chapter, the Boston chapter. I was president from fiscal year 18, 19, 19, and 20, 2 years in a row. Then I've been past president for the last 2 years and recently named president-elect starting in July. I'm president again. I love being on the leadership team, and you and I have that in common. How awesome is it? And a lot of work, I admit, and I'm sure you would agree, but how awesome is it to be head of a AMA chapter?
It's awesome for a couple of reasons. One is I work with just a wonderful, talented group of marketing professionals, and I learn from them every day. And just to be surrounded by this group has been just a wonderful experience for me. So that, number one, out of the gate, I'd say that's number one. Two, this volunteering for this organization has been, and never did I ever think about volunteering for a marketing organization or association, which sounds weird because I've been in marketing for so long. So when the opportunity presented itself, I didn't even think twice about it. I was like, of course, if I'm going to spend my time and volunteer, of course I want to do that for something that I truly love and supports my career. So that's kind of what I've really enjoyed about being in this position.
Yeah, AMA is amazing, and I did parenthetically say, sure, it's a lot of work, but I've always said you get out of things what you put into them, and to me, why not put your all into it, because there's so much more we get in return by being leaders of our chapters and just being members and volunteers as well. I think association with the association with AMA is going to rub off in a very, very good way on marketing professionals. You and I, even if it's after you're president, you and I need to talk about maybe our chapters doing something together, like a Twitter chat or Twitter Spaces, or I don't know, something. We have to collaborate.
And that's one of the phenomenal things that this virtual world has brought us over the last couple of years, is I've seen just tremendous collaboration amongst chapters, and that's what the technology has allowed us to do. So absolutely, I'm all for it. We're definitely looking for opportunities to bring the most value to our marketing community, and I think collaborating with other chapters like Boston would be a great opportunity.
About the pandemic and the slight silver linings here and there, if you will. versus the dark cloud that is the pandemic. It's been awful and hard to so many people, and taken so many lives, and so much sickness, and that's sad. Business wise, silver lining. For instance, my podcast, I was doing them all in person, which was great, but it was harder to do, harder to arrange for. And I've done so many now, virtually, like this, using Zoom, like you and I are doing right now, putting them up on YouTube. That's a plus, embracing technology. And then our chapters having to go virtual, and pivot and get used to all this technology. I think we all have, and there's some big changes that are going to stick in the workplace, working from home, and again, embracing technology. There's some positive changes. Sure, I have missed being in person, and we need that. We need that social interaction, but leveraging technology, learning technology, catching up with technology, that's been a plus for all of us. Would you agree? Any examples of your own to add to that?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I saw a funny survey. I don't know if it was real or not, but it was a survey about what's driven technology adoption for certain products or services. And one of the options was like COVID-19, and it was the biggest percentage bar in that survey. So
Mm.
I don't know if it's true or not in terms of the survey, but we know it's certainly true in terms of real life and what actually happened. So I agree. It's definitely the silver lining, and some of this will stick. And I think it also opens our eyes that there is technology out there that really can help us reach more people or be more efficient and effective in the work that we do. And we need to, take advantage of that where it makes sense.
You know, again, bringing up the national conference I'm attending in 3 weeks, talk about, getting out of it what you put into it. Sure, virtual was really hard the last couple of years. We made the most of it. But it was easy in that we didn't have to pack our bags and fly to some other state and pay all that money to travel. Because I've just made my hotel and plane reservations, and it's pricey. And with the price of
Mm-hmm.
gas, it's especially pricey. And I'll be away, from my wife and kids, for a couple nights, a few days. And, so that's a sacrifice. But the gain, it's just interesting. Life is so interesting, and not to get all profound, but the gain of being there in person. I can't wait to see people in person and hug some people and shake some hands, and have that stimulation, and speak in front of an audience and be in the audience, and the exhilaration. Sure, I'll be wicked tired. Again, my wallet will be a little bit lighter, because how much it costs. There's pluses and negatives to being virtual, pluses and negatives to being in person. And maybe again, that ideal blend going forward is what we all embrace.
Agreed.
Hey, so what about getting away from AMA a tad, but more on marketing? There have been a lot of changes, pandemic included, of course, in marketing, and let's add social media to that. That falls under the aegis of marketing. I know that more and more people are going digital, of course, or being forced to go digital, retail going e-tail, offline going online. And what changes have you seen, including the last 2 years, probably especially the last 2 years, but in marketing over the years? You've been in marketing quite a while. And what changes are not so good, and what changes have you seen where it's like, wow, that's awesome that we can do that now? And that's a big, broad question, I realize, but you can go anywhere with that.
Yeah. What changes that I've seen in marketing over the last couple of years because of digital? One of the big changes that I've noticed over the last couple of years is, I would say, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, maybe not the awareness, but maybe I'll say it this way, maybe the awareness of more brands, of folks, brands that you probably wouldn't normally hear about, right? There's an opportunity that now that they're online and not going through maybe the traditional routes, that you're able to learn about them. And I think that, for me personally, as a consumer, that's been very helpful and interesting, but also as a marketer to kind of observe that you're not only seeing kind of the big brands that you're used to seeing through traditional media, but now you're seeing some of these other either startups or smaller brands that you wouldn't normally have access to. So that's been really interesting for me, from both from a consumer and a marketer.
I think that's a great point, not an answer anticipated. A very good point that brands are perhaps surfacing more and being perhaps more personable and putting the faces on themselves, on their corporate logos. And it's like, oh, hey, I've heard of them before but never knew that much about them. And now, thanks to digital and maybe thanks to the pandemic, that kind of accelerated that surfacing of these brands online. We get to know them, and I've always said the more you get to know somebody, you like them, you respect them, and the more likely you'll be to buy from them. So maybe they're catching on one way or another to the secrets of success in marketing. Are there any
Hmm.
brands, not to throw you a curveball, but drilling down even deeper, that you could name any brands, people that you support or that you
Yeah.
see? Any examples?
Sure, I'll share. So, I'm totally into fitness, so I'll talk about this more so from a consumer standpoint. So, some fitness brands are like Noon Hydration or Shox headphones, and some brands like those where I've never heard of these brands before, right? I mean, some of them are kind of in some of the specialty sports stores, but not really maybe mainstream. Or maybe some of the sneakers, some of the sneaker brands that I follow, like Topo Athletic. I think like Hoka's are probably a little bit more well known and some of those
Yep.
other ones. But
Yep.
before any of this, for me, it was Nikes and Adidas, right? Those are like the common ones. It wasn't some of these other brands. And then same thing for the electronics. So those are some of the ones that just are top of mind for me that I'm grateful for, that I've kind of learned about them through digital. And that's, maybe one of the things connected with the advertising piece is maybe the barrier to entry is lower for many of these brands because they're able to kind of promote in a different way than maybe traditionally.
I think you're right, and I love the industry you chose, because we're both there with regard to running and athletics, fitness. And I agree, they are building communities and embracing technology, and we feel closer to them as consumers, and that's really smart of them as marketers. And you mentioned Hoka, and yeah, there's Nike and Adidas and the bigger brands, New Balance, but they're all seeming to get it at the same time, and the playing field, no pun intended, is leveling off a little because of technology and community and personality, as opposed to, hey, I just have a huge brand name and a huge budget. Now it's fair game. Almost anybody can win if you can build those relationships with your audience, and it sounds like some brands are doing that, just that with you.
They are, and they have that opportunity to build the relationship, on a more personal level than maybe some of the larger brands. So that's going to give them somewhat of an advantage, right? So whether they're doing it through their own organic channels or they're doing it through influencers, they have really great opportunities to get in front of a lot of consumers.
If you were, so you and I have, I have a lot of experience, almost so much experience I'm embarrassed to admit how many years I've been in business. So you're probably right in the prime, if you will, of your career. I'm guessing 20 years or so of in business. You said it yourself, 15 years or so. I'm like twice that much. That's how long I've been doing this thing. So between us, let's just say we both got a lot of experience. But things have changed as we're talking, and it's not like when I looked for a job back in the day, cutting out the classified ads and picking up the phone and mailing resumes. It's a whole different world. And it's probably even different than, yourself 20 years ago or so, approximately, when you looked for your first job or broke into this field. What advice, because things have changed so much. I mean, new job candidates, starting out perhaps working remotely or hybridly. What advice would you have for people? Any suggestions? Any take on that topic?
Yeah, so if I could repeat back the question, really looking for those who might be starting their career or want to get into marketing or in the job market in general.
You marketing specific, but it could be the job, job getting a good job in general. It's competitive, even though I hear there's tons of jobs available out there. I also hear, because I'm a adjunct professor at the college level, and I hear, it's hard to stand out among the competition for some of these good jobs.
Yeah, so I was going to say that before, our current times where there are a number of opportunities open, and I think either current employees or prospective employees are just thinking about their next opportunity. There's a lot of opportunities out there today. But if you're just starting out in this career, I think a lot of the traditional ways still hold true. I'm looking for first being able to build your brand, right? Knowing who you are and what you're looking for, and building that presence online, and more important today, right, through platforms like LinkedIn and so forth, and then building out your network there. I think those things have been around for a while. I think they're still true today. If you haven't had true, I would say, marketing experience in the past, again, internships are going to help give you that experience, as well as connect you to those prospective employers, right? I think the idea is be successful in that internship and then find a full-time position with that employer or yet another one. So I think a lot of those still hold true. I think, again, the online piece of it is probably more important today than maybe it was in the past. And not everybody either thinks about it or is really intentional about that. So you see a lot of conversations online, a lot of courses about personal branding and your online presence. And I think because there's such a need, because not everybody's as intentional as they should be about it.
Yeah, you mentioned two really. I mean, the internship is very important. I had 2 or 3 of them back in my day, and I know that's still a thing and very important. And it's a foot in the door, and often leads to working at those companies, because for those companies, it's try before you buy, if you will. They see the intern working, and they can make that intern a job offer before the competition sees them as candidates. But you also, so networking and online networking, again, we didn't have in my day that opportunity, but the personal branding online, LinkedIn, social media in general, students can take advantage of that and really get a head start on the competition for a job by, the LinkedIn profile is one thing, but they can also, hey, I gave a shout out for having a podcast, having a blog, do some videos, have your own YouTube channel. You can really stand out as a recent college grad looking for a job if you have that whole social media portfolio with the strong personal brand. And I think both you and I agree that so internships and personal branding and social media.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, one more thing I would add, and I hadn't really thought about this deeply before, but there are opportunities for you to even gain that real world experience even ahead of time, because there's so many courses that are available today on digital marketing and social media, as an example. And there is plenty of opportunities for you to just test and learn, right? Create your own community, or just kind of run some of these activities on your own before getting into a 9-to-5 job, which, the kind of the old challenge of well, you need more experience for this job. Well, how do I get more experience if I can't get the job, right? Something that employees probably dealt with 20 plus years ago. I think nowadays is probably a little bit easier to get that kind of, experience depending on what you want to go in without having that formal 9 to 5 job.
Yeah, take the initiative. Don't be shy. Speculative, creative. We used to call it in the industry. I think that's still a thing, meaning I've worked at agencies my whole career until the last few years. And, to win business, we sometimes would do examples of what we would do for the client if they hired us. And students can do that. They can, present a portfolio to a potential employer and say, hey, this is what I would do for you if you hire me, and or make up their own companies, fictitious companies, or just summer jobs, add to what you're doing with regard to your job description. Maybe I'm making this up, you're a waiter or waitress, a wait person, server. I'm looking for the right term for those who bring the meals to your table or what have you. But if you want to break into marketing, why don't you offer on the side to do some marketing for that restaurant or that hospitality business? Hey, I'll do your marketing for free, but can I use it in my portfolio? And that portfolio might get me a job down the road as a marketing pro. Thinking on the fly here, Richard.
Mm-hmm. I know, I love it, and I love that creativity, and I agree with what you said, about having to stand out. This is a very creative way of doing that, So no, I love it.
So the running, we have to talk about that before we wind down this conversation. We still have a few more minutes, but I don't want to forget. You and I, so I'll tell everybody, full disclosure, you had me on your podcast before I had you on mine. And you have a running podcast. So you're the pro at hosting a podcast. And I enjoyed being your guest. But running, that's what we talked about. That's what we both have in common. Tell us about, we can talk about whatever we want, Richard. So let's segue into running, long as the audience doesn't mind. We might lose a few marketing pro people who are listening and watching, but we may gain. I may broaden my audience, and runners may start listening to my podcast. What kind of runner are you? What kind of races do you do? What's your training like?
Yeah, absolutely. And we could tie this back to marketing easily. So,
yeah.
So certainly happy to do that as well to keep your listeners engaged here. So, personally for me, running is something I started in high school. I was never really the fastest runner, but I felt like it was a sport that I could do. I wasn't completely athletic, but it was something I could do and enjoyed doing throughout high school. And then after high school and into college, I did not run as much, and I really focused more so on college and kind of starting off my career. And I did run as part of kind of workouts over the years, but didn't get back into it until about 5 or 6 years ago. I got, I would say, deeply back into running with obstacle course racing, as we talked about in the beginning of the conversation. And for me, I would run 5Ks, typically cross country, so either in trails or on the road, and that was kind of my jam. That never really anything more than that at the time. And what obstacle course racing really gave me was an opportunity to do something different, really kind of challenge me in a different way, but also was a time in my life where I wanted to do things that I thought that I could never do. And I wanted to challenge myself in different ways. And this was kind of the fitness aspect of it. I have other non-fitness things that I was doing, but these are the things I wanted to do to overcome fears. And that's one of the things I was super excited about getting into obstacle course racing. So I started off with Spartan back in, I want to say 2018. Since then, I've done over half a dozen races, which if you don't know what Spartan obstacle course races are, they're usually 5K, 10K, or half marathon distance, or even longer. And they'll have obstacles as if you're, I would say, like in military training. So you're, climbing over obstacles, you're climbing up ropes, you're drudging through mud, you're doing a lot of things that many of us would say is fun. Many others probably not so much. and I really enjoyed that. I've really been on this kind of track to improve my time and my performance and just my overall health and fitness kind of through that. So that's part of what I've been doing. And then separately, I've been trying to increase my distances. So about almost 2 years ago, I ran my first half marathon. I did that virtually, which was a lot of fun. And almost a year ago, last October, I ran my first in-person half marathon here in Connecticut, in Hartford, which was also a lot of fun and a huge accomplishment. So that's kind of the journey that I'm on, is running these longer races and just improving my overall performance in the obstacle course races.
Extremely impressive. Something I have not done at all. As I'm saying that, I'm thinking to, in my head, corroborate that. And yeah, I have not done any obstacle course races like those Spartans. And I know there are a bunch of others out there. And you talk about branding and social media. I quite sure they do a lot of that. And they are building communities and loyalty, et cetera, as marketers. But no, I have not done that. That's wicked impressive, Richard. I mean, I brag about, and I joke when I say brag, but I talk about doing all these races, but they're just running. There's no hurdles to overcome, no swimming to be done, no slopping through mud, whatever you do in those things. Don't you like walk on fire or something? Have you done
You
that?
do jump over it. You don't walk through it, you do jump over it, but there is fire involved. So, which is a lot of fun because you're pretty much at the end at that point. So it's a little bit of a celebration.
I would love that, but I would probably hurt myself so badly I'd never be able to walk again. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little, but I am getting along in the years, and I want to run. I always say until the day I die, and I might. I don't even want to joke about what I'm thinking, but in doing one of those things, I might hurt myself so bad I might not be able to run again. Good on you for doing the obstacle courses, and I think good on those companies like Spartan who came up with those ideas, because everything I see about them looks so cool. And I see pictures. I have friends who do those, and you're one of them. And they get great pictures that you share on social media, and that's you doing the marketing for them. You know, do they make you feel good? I mean, do they treat you well and make you feel like the athlete you are? You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, I do. You know what? So I'm not an ambassador or necessarily an influencer for Spartan, but, informally, we all are, right? All the racers who are posting these pictures, and that ties back into what we were kind of talking about earlier for these brands, and gives them that kind of opportunity to get the exposure, which was the word I was looking for earlier, that, maybe would be harder to get otherwise. And of course, it's really great not only to show up at these events and feel the energy with all the other runners, but the folks who are really working for Spartan or volunteers that are running the events, they also, do their best to make you feel special, and they really do their best to show that they care, right? Their whole philosophy, Joe's philosophy, is to get everybody off the couch, right? So sort of kind of like an intense couch to 5K kind of way, right? Getting off the couch and get moving and get active is her whole philosophy, and I'm certainly aligned to that with my own beliefs. So yeah, it's a wonderful time.
We are touching on something very important to marketers and brands, because any brand or business can market themselves similarly. You want to make your audience feel good. You want to make them the stars of the show. You want your employees to all be marketers, if you will. So you're all on the same team and making your customers, giving them an amazing customer experience, making them feel heroic, and to the point where they share their experience with their own networks. And then the reach is exponentially bigger of your, marketing messages. Suddenly, not just those who participated in that obstacle course event, but all their friends, all their family know about it. And they, like I've been thinking, I want to do this someday. They start saying, I want to do this, and they do this. And that just increases the size of the audience. And any brand or business can do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, one of the things I love about Spartan is they are true to their brand promise. And you see it in all of their posts and all of their events and even their offering, the services, right? When I mentioned they want to get everybody off the couch and get moving. Well, maybe these muddy races aren't for you. You look at barbed wire and muddy races, and you're like, yeah, that's not my thing. So they've started up other series that are non-muddy series, like their stadium races, as an example,
Yeah.
where you're running a lot of stairs, but you're not getting in mud, you're not getting dirty, and you're not probably doing some of the things that you would consider maybe a little bit beyond your reach as more of an entry level way to do it. So I love the things that they're doing is they're not just focusing on one product or one service and say this is it. They're really expanding it that in a way that's true to their brand promise. So I really really enjoyed not only running Spartan races over the last few years, but just kind of being part of the community.
Richard, we especially you have broken down their secret to success. And again, it's a great case study for other marketers, other brands and businesses, students of marketing. Spartan, good case study, good story, good conversation. I'm gonna start to wind it down because we agreed on a certain time that we would end, and we're up against the clock a little bit. But let me ask if there's anything I didn't ask that you would like to talk about. Totally wide open in terms of anything you want to say to people, talk about, etc.
Yeah, the only thing I would say first off, thank you again for having me on the show. This is really an honor to be on your show and to talk about marketing because even though I'm not necessarily in the function at the moment, it's a career that I love. Marketing has been not something I grew up thinking I would do, but as I got into it, I realized that there's a lot of elements of it that I really enjoy doing. So, it's an honor for me to be here. And, just one thing I think, that's probably a little bit more specific to my situation versus maybe some of the other guests is, there's a lot of elements to marketing. And I think, when people say marketing, they think one very specific thing, but it encompasses a lot and it's evolved over the years. So, that's just one thing that I like to say is that I've done certain parts of it, around like strategic marketing and product management and so on, but very, very interested in learning and expanding into other parts. So one last thing I think I would leave with folks is, if you're doing one thing within marketing, look beyond that. What are the other things that you could be doing in marketing that could be a benefit to, you as an individual, to your own company or your own business or the company that you work for, and really just kind of expand your thinking around that. So that's one thing I think I would leave folks with.
No, it's very astute advice, and with the pace of change today with regard to marketing, business, life itself, great advice because there's always opportunities around the corner, on the horizon, et cetera. And that's what you're saying. Look for them and think outside the box. I love that. Love that, Richard. How can people, if they want to connect with you, can they find you on social media? What's your preferred method of contact for them to find you?
Yeah, so I'll throw in a marketing term. I segment my online profile. So I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there, Richard S. Connor, and I'll give you my information. I usually reserve that for all the business, like anything related to marketing and technology or my current business. And then I'm also on Instagram, and Instagram is more so my fitness, health and fitness kind of page. So you can certainly find me on there as well. And I'll share my links, Bob, if you want to include those in the notes.
Yeah, I absolutely will. Share them with me, please, Richard, and I'll make sure to promote this podcast on YouTube and on social media everywhere. I'll clip out some of the highlights, and there's been many, and put those out. So practicing what I preach, promote the heck out of this show, which has been episode 152 of Bob Cargill's Marketing Show. Richard, thank you so very, very much.
Thank you so much again, Bob, for having me.
Yeah, No, you've been an awesome guest. I think this has been an awesome conversation, and I am sure listeners and viewers have enjoyed it as much as we have. Because as I say to those of you who have ever thought of having a podcast, trust me, it's enjoyable and relatively easy. You just gotta carve out the time. But if you're in marketing, I encourage you to carve out that time and be a podcaster like both Richard and I. And look at, we've both been guests on each other's shows now. I think that's wicked cool. Thanks again, Richard. Bob Cargill's Marketing Show, episode 152. I want to thank you all for watching and listening, and we will absolutely be back with another episode of Bob Cargill's Marketing Show soon. Bye for now, everybody.